my fellow Jamaicans, brothers and sisters across the African continent, distinguished members of the international community, and most importantly, Captain Ibrahim Traore, President of the Transitional Government of Burkina Faso. I come before you with a heart that is heavy, but also open. I come not to speak as a man defending himself, but as a leader willing to acknowledge fault. And I come not to diminish my office, but to honor it by admitting a truth that all leaders at some point in their journey must face. Sometimes we misspeak, sometimes we misjudge, and sometimes we must apologize. Several weeks ago, in a live broadcast, I used the word dictator to describe Captain Ibrahim Traore. That single word has echoed far beyond my intention. It has stirred emotions, fueled debates, and created tension between Jamaica and Burkina Faso, two nations whose histories should unite them, not divide them. And tonight, I am here to say plainly and sincerely, I regret those words. I take responsibility for them, and I offer my heartfelt apology. When I spoke that day, I spoke with conviction. I spoke as a leader who believes deeply in the values of democracy, values that Jamaica has held close for decades. I spoke from a place of concern, but I failed to speak from a place of understanding. Conviction without compassion is dangerous. Principles without perspective can wound. And in calling Captain Traore a dictator, I crossed the line between principled critique and personal disrespect. It was not my role to reduce a fellow leader, especially one facing immense challenges in his homeland, to a single word that carries such weight, such judgment, and such finality. Yes, I believe in democracy. Yes, I believe in elections, in parliaments, in institutions that protect the will of the people. But I also believe in respect. Respect for the paths that nations choose. Respect for the burdens leaders carry. And respect for the struggles that shape their choices. Captain Traore, in my choice of words, I failed to extend that respect. And for that, I am sorry. To the people of Burkina Faso, you are a nation of resilience. You are a people who have endured colonization, coups, poverty, and the ongoing threat of violent extremism. And yet, you stand proud, you stand tall. You continue to fight for a future that is free, independent, and dignified. Your leader, Captain Traore, took power in a time of crisis. He is young, yes, but he is bold. He faces a reality most of us cannot imagine, an ongoing war with forces that seek to destabilize and destroy. While the world debates, he acts. While others hesitate, he makes decisions. I may not share his methods, I may not embrace his path, but I must recognize his courage. And I must respect the fact that his people look to him not only as a ruler, but as a symbol of their fight for sovereignty. When I labeled him a dictator, I failed to honor that reality. I spoke too quickly, too harshly, without the humility that every leader owes to another who walks the hard road of governance. My fellow Jamaicans, I also owe you this truth. Leadership is not about never making mistakes. Leadership is about admitting them when they happen and correcting them before they cause further harm. When I called Captain Traore a dictator, I did so with the belief that I was defending democracy. But in doing so, I risked damaging Jamaica's reputation as a nation of respect, as a nation that values dialogue over division, and as a nation that stands for unity among the peoples of the global south. We are a small island, but we are a proud one. Our voice on the international stage matters. And when we use that voice carelessly, the world listens not to our wisdom, but to our mistakes. Tonight, I want Jamaicans to know this. Your Prime Minister is not above apology. Your Prime Minister is not above reflection. And your Prime Minister is not too proud to say, I was wrong. To Africa, our ancestral home, our mother continent, I extend this apology with even deeper sincerity. Jamaica is tied to Africa by blood, by history, by spirit. The chains of slavery that bound our ancestors were forged in Africa. The songs of freedom that carried us through struggle were inspired by Africa. And the strength that keeps us alive today flows from the same river that nourishes you. How then could I, as the leader of a nation built on the resilience of Africans, use words that divide rather than unite? How could I, even in defense of democracy, fail to show empathy to a brother leader navigating storms beyond my imagination? I do not take lightly the pain my words may have caused across the continent. And I stand before you to repair, not to wound, to build, not to break. Some will ask, why apologize? Why retract words once spoken? Isn't it weakness? No, it is strength. It is strength to stand firm when you are right, but it is even greater strength to step back when you are wrong. Pride may win applause in the moment, but humility builds trust for generations. I apologize, not because I was forced, not because I was pressured, but because it is right, and because the relationship between Jamaica and Africa is too important to be clouded by careless words. Captain Traore, allow me to speak to you directly. I may not walk your path, but I respect the road you travel. I may not lead your people, but I respect the burden you carry. I acknowledge your courage in standing against forces that seek to weaken your nation. I acknowledge your determination to assert independence in a world where small nations are often pressured and dismissed. And I acknowledge that while we may disagree, I should never have dismissed your leadership with a single word. I extend my hand to you not as an adversary, but as a brother, not as a critic, but as a fellow leader. I hope you will accept this apology, not as weakness, but as an invitation to dialogue, to partnership, to mutual respect. What do I hope comes from this apology? I hope it sparks a deeper conversation between Jamaica and Burkina Faso. I hope it reminds the world that our nations, though small in size, are large in spirit and capable of setting an example of humility and reconciliation. I hope it reminds leaders everywhere that words matter, that we must wield them carefully, not recklessly. That in an age where every statement is amplified across the globe, humility is no longer optional, it is essential. And most of all, I hope it builds a bridge between Kingston and Ouagadougou, a bridge between the Caribbean and Africa, a bridge strong enough to withstand the storms of politics, built not on pride, but on respect. My fellow Jamaicans, citizens of Burkina Faso, members of the global community, tonight I stand before you not as a man without fault, but as a man willing to admit fault. To Captain Ibrahim Traore, I say again, I am sorry. To the people of Burkina Faso, I am sorry. To the people of Jamaica, I am sorry. To Africa, to the Caribbean, to the world, I am sorry. May we move forward, not with resentment, but with reconciliation. Not with division, but with dialogue. Not with arrogance, but with humility. Because in the end, leadership is not about always being right. It is about always striving to do what is right. Thank you. May God bless Jamaica. May God bless Burkina Faso. And may God bless all nations striving for peace, dignity, and unity. I stand before you today not merely as the Prime Minister of Jamaica, but as a man humbled by the weight of history and by the responsibility of acknowledging a truth that has lingered for far too long in silence. Today is not a day for politics. It is not a day for rehearsed lines, carefully crafted press statements, or diplomatic posturing. Today is a day for courage, a day for reflection, a day for an apology that carries not just words, but substance, an apology valued not only in the currency of dollars, but in the currency of justice, dignity, and humanity. For years, the world has watched as the people of Burkina Faso have struggled against the weight of external pressures, unfair geopolitical manipulations, and centuries-old structures designed to keep nations like yours small. For too long, many of us, directly or indirectly, stood on the sidelines, complicit in silence, benefiting from the imbalance of power that stripped Africa of her voice, her resources, and her dignity. And for that, I say, as the Prime Minister of Jamaica, we were wrong, profoundly wrong. This apology is not performative, it is not symbolic, it is backed by action. Jamaica, for the first time in its modern history, is making a $600 million reparative commitment to the government and people of Burkina Faso. A gesture not born out of pity, but out of moral clarity, historical accountability, and the understanding that reconciliation without restoration is an empty word. This is why I stand here today before the world to deliver a formal, unequivocal apology to President Ibrahim Traore and the people of Burkina Faso. Your nation, under your leadership, President Traore, has become a symbol of courage in an age where silence often masquerades as diplomacy. You have chosen to walk the hard road, the road of sovereignty, dignity, and self-reliance. A road that many warned would be lonely and unforgiving. But instead, what we have seen is the emergence of a nation unwilling to be dictated to, unwilling to be carved into someone else's geopolitical chessboard. And for that, you have earned not only the respect of your people, but of millions across the globe who watch in quiet admiration. I speak to you as the head of a small Caribbean nation, one that has its own history of oppression, exploitation, and colonial entanglement. Our people, like yours, were made to believe for generations that our destinies could only be written by foreign hands. We were told to be grateful for crumbs while our labor, our lands, and our future enriched others. We were told to be silent, but silence does not heal wounds, it only buries them deeper. And buried wounds, as history has shown us, do not disappear.
You're not just running a restaurant, you're building something big. And Square's there for all of it, giving your customers more.
Not disappear. They fester, they rot, and eventually they force their way to the surface. The story of Burkina Faso is not far from the story of Jamaica. Two nations that stood on the periphery of global power, two peoples who inherited chains they did not forge. But there comes a time when history demands accountability, not from those who inflicted the wound alone, but also from those who stood by and watched. There comes a time when moral responsibility must outweigh political convenience. And that time for Jamaica is now. When I look at what your nation has endured, the economic blockades, the disinformation campaigns, the pressure to conform to external dictates, I see reflections of what so many of us have suffered. But where many have bent, you stood. Where many whispered, you spoke. And where many retreated, you advanced. That courage deserves more than applause. It deserves tangible solidarity. In the corridors of power across the world, there is an unspoken truth. Africa was never poor. Africa was made poor. through structures designed to extract wealth, through policies that punished independence, and through narratives that painted resistance as recklessness. These structures did not exist in isolation. Many of our post-colonial nations, including my own, were forced to navigate and sometimes cooperate with systems that perpetuated that injustice, not always willingly, but undeniably. This is why today is not about Jamaica rescuing Burkina Faso. It is not about charity. It is about facing our own complicity in a global economic order that has enriched some at the expense of many. It is about acknowledging the years of silence, the years when we did not speak loudly enough as nations like yours were cornered and punished for daring to be free. It is about repair. $600 million is not enough to repay centuries of injustice. It will not restore every stolen dream. It will not erase every indignity, and it will not heal every scar. But it is a beginning, a tangible, accountable beginning, a step towards a new relationship between Jamaica and Burkina Faso, between our peoples and our futures. This commitment will not come with hidden clauses, nor will it be dressed as foreign aid. It will come as an unrestricted reparative fund to be used at the discretion of your government and your people. It will not come with the language of donors, but with the humility of partners. It will not be a handout, but a hand extended in respect. When we examined our trade history, our diplomatic positions, and our participation in international forums, we could not escape the uncomfortable truth that too often we positioned ourselves as silent beneficiaries of a world order that was built on Africa's suffering. We spoke about solidarity, but rarely acted with courage. And so this apology is also a mirror for Jamaica itself to look at who we have been and decide who we want to be. President Traore, I have followed your speeches. I have listened to your voice cutting through the noise of global diplomacy. I have heard you say that dignity is not for sale, that sovereignty is not negotiable, and that Africa will no longer kneel to beg for what is rightfully hers. And when I heard those words, something stirred deep within me, not just as a leader, but as a man who understands what it means to inherit the chains of history. Too many nations in the global south have been forced to wear the mask of diplomacy while bleeding silently. Too many have been pressured to accept conditional loans, to bend their knees in multilateral halls, to sign deals that enrich foreign corporations while impoverishing their own children. But what you have done is remind the world that a people willing to endure hardship for their dignity are stronger than empires built on deceit. This is why this moment matters, because this apology is not only about the past, it is about rewriting the future. It is about building bridges between Africa and the Caribbean that are not dependent on foreign approval. It is about recognizing that we are stronger, not as subjects of global systems, but as architects of our own destiny. Our commitment of $600 million is structured over a 5-year period, not because we wish to control its use, but because we understand the importance of building sustainable, long-term partnerships. It is our hope that this fund will support the infrastructural dreams of Burkina Faso, whether in agriculture, technology, education, or health, wherever your people decide it is most needed. We will provide no oversight, no supervision, no interference. For the first time, we are not seeking to shape your development narrative. We are simply saying, this is yours. I have also instructed that a bilateral reparative development council to be established. Not to dictate, but to listen. This council will be composed equally of Burkinabe and Jamaican voices, traditional leaders, economists, youth representatives, and cultural custodians. Its role will not be to decide for your people, but to ensure that the bridge we build between our two nations is made of trust, not paperwork. In our two nations is made of trust, not paperwork. Some will question why Jamaica, a small nation grappling with its own challenges, would make such a commitment. They will say we cannot afford it. They will call it reckless, political, unnecessary. But I say to them, what we cannot afford is to continue living in the shadows of historical injustice. What we cannot afford is silence. What we cannot afford is to preach Pan-Africanism in our songs and speeches while doing nothing when Africa stands alone. What we cannot afford is to build a future on a foundation of unresolved history. Our forefathers spoke of unity. Great men and women across our shared histories dreamed of a time when Africa and the Caribbean would stand shoulder to shoulder, not as distant cousins, but as one people with one voice. That dream was delayed, but not dead. It lives in the beating hearts of young people across our nations who no longer want to inherit shame, but pride. Who no longer want to read about solidarity, but to see it in action. President Traore, today I do not just apologize. I pledge. I pledge that this moment will not end with a speech. It will not end with applause. It will not end with handshakes and photographs. It will continue in trade, in cultural exchange, in education partnerships, in shared development, in standing together on the global stage as equals. Jamaica will stand with Burkina Faso in international forums, not as an observer, but as a defender of your sovereignty. We will speak where others remain silent. We will use our diplomatic voice not as a whisper, but as a megaphone for justice. For too long, nations like ours have waited for others to lead. We have waited for powerful countries to define what justice looks like. But justice, real justice, is not given by the powerful. It is demanded and forged by those who refuse to forget. Today, Jamaica refuses to forget. And I know this. This apology is not the end of the conversation. It is the beginning of a long and necessary journey. A journey that will require honesty, patience, and courage. We will make mistakes along the way. We will stumble, but we will walk this path with humility and sincerity. I stand here as a leader of a nation that once watched the world turn its back on Africa. And I say today, Jamaica will no longer be a bystander. We will not remain on the sidelines of history. We will be part of the chorus that says Africa deserves justice. We will be part of the alliance that builds, not one that exploits. We will be part of the legacy that our children will be proud to inherit. President Traore, to you personally, I owe a word of respect. You have not only defended your nation, you have inspired millions beyond your borders. You have shown that leadership is not measured by the size of a nation's GDP, but by the courage of its convictions. Your stance has echoed across the Atlantic, reaching the shores of Jamaica, stirring conversations in homes, in universities, in parliaments. You have awakened something powerful, the reminder that dignity is not a privilege, it is a right. This $600 million apology, therefore, is not a gift. It is a debt being acknowledged, a wrong being addressed, a bridge being rebuilt. And I hope that one day, when history books are written, this day will not be remembered for the number, but for the courage to face what many refuse to confront. To the people of Burkina Faso, hear me clearly. Jamaica respects you. Jamaica stands with you. Jamaica sees you not through the lens of Western narratives, but through the lens of shared struggle and shared destiny. May this moment be the beginning of something bigger than two nations. May it be the spark that lights a fire across the global south. A fire that says enough to centuries of exploitation, enough to silence, enough to division. The $600 million commitment is immediate, but its meaning will echo for generations. It will be used to build schools where children will learn their true history, not a colonial fiction. It will support hospitals where your people will heal in dignity. It will strengthen industries that will make Burkina Faso self-sufficient. It will support the dreams of young people who refuse to be defined by poverty, but by possibility. And as we make this commitment, I say to the international community, this is not about guilt, this is about justice. It is not about weakness, it is about strength. It is not about erasing history. It is about facing it head on with courage. President Traore, I thank you for receiving this apology with the grace and strength you embody. I thank the people of Burkina Faso for their resilience. I thank my people in Jamaica for supporting a decision that many will not fully understand today, but which future generations will look back on with pride. And I thank the global community watching, because I hope this moment will inspire not just admiration, but action. We are two nations separated by an ocean, but connected by history, pain, struggle, and no purpose. And with this apology, with this commitment, with this renewed bond, we say, let the era of silence end. Let the era of justice begin.
Distinguished members of the Jamaican government, honorable representatives of the Caribbean community, and the people of Jamaica watching this moment. Today, I stand to speak to you not as a man seeking wealth, but as a man defending dignity. I stand not to claim a check, but to guard a principle. For there are moments in the life of nations when money is not the answer. There are wounds that cannot be bought, and there is dignity that cannot be sold. And this, brothers and sisters, is one of those moments. A few days ago, the Prime Minister of Jamaica, Andrew Holness, stood before the world and delivered a historic apology to the people of Burkina Faso. He spoke with eloquence, with humility, and with courage. He acknowledged the silent complicity of nations that watched Africa bleed. He pledged $600 million as a gesture of reparative justice, and for that courage, I commend him. It takes strength for any leader to stand in the face of history and say, we were wrong. But today, I must also speak with courage. I must speak with the weight of a nation that refuses to let dignity be measured in dollars. And I say to Prime Minister Holness, to the Jamaican people, and to the world, Burkina Faso will not accept the $600 million apology. We will not accept it not because we are ungrateful, not because we are blind to the symbolic importance of the gesture, but because we believe that the true liberation of Africa and the Caribbean cannot be bought. It must be lived. It must be fought for. It must be owned by the people who have suffered under the chains of history. Prime Minister Holness, your apology has touched many hearts. It has sent waves across the ocean that binds our continents. But my rejection of the $600 million is not a rejection of Jamaica. It is a call to Jamaica. It is a call to your people. It is a call to rise not as donors, not as observers of Africa's liberation, but as partners in your own freedom. Because when I look at Jamaica, I do not see a nation that owes us money. I see a nation that still carries its own chains. I see a people with brilliance, with history, with strength, but still caught in structures designed to keep them kneeling. I see young men and women living under the weight of systems that still police their existence, not to protect but to control. I see a people who, like us, have been told to accept their place in a world order they did not design. And I say this with love and respect. What good is $600 million to Burkina Faso when the Jamaican people are not yet free themselves? Freedom is not measured in the signing of checks or the issuing of press statements. It is measured in whether your people can walk the streets without fear of police or military brutality. It is measured in whether your government answers to its citizens and not to foreign masters. It is measured in whether the treasures of Jamaica, its land, its resources, its culture, its people belong to Jamaicans, not to foreign corporations or global financial institutions. You see, we in Burkina Faso did not choose the path of sovereignty because it was easy. We chose it because we refused to let our future be auctioned to the highest bidder. And so, when we are offered $600 million in the name of reparations, we must ask, what does Jamaica need most right now? to give or to be free, to apologize to Africa or to liberate itself from the same systems that bled Africa dry. The blood that runs in the veins of your people is the same blood that runs in ours. The chains that once held us were forged in the same furnaces of empire. Our oppressors spoke the same language. Our pain is intertwined. How then can I, as president of Burkina Faso, accept your apology with money when the people of Jamaica themselves are still fighting to breathe? Prime Minister Holness, I listened to your speech. I heard the sincerity in your voice. I heard the weight of history in your words. But the true apology I desire is not written on a check. It is written in the freedom of your people. It is written in the end of corruption, in the dismantling of the economic chains that bind your nation. It is written in the rebuilding of your national treasures that have been looted, privatized, and sold off. It is written in the liberation of the Jamaican people from the shadow of foreign powers that still control their destiny. I do not want $600 million. I want to see a Jamaica where no young man is gunned down on the streets for the color of his skin, the poverty of his pocket, or the boldness of his spirit. I want to see a Jamaica where the wealth beneath the soil, the gold, the bauxite, the sugar, the energy of your land belongs to Jamaicans, not foreign investors. I want to see a Jamaica that walks into international forums, not as a junior partner seeking approval, but as a sovereign nation dictating its destiny. If I were to accept this money, I would be accepting the illusion that Burkina Faso needs saving more than Jamaica needs rebuilding. I would be accepting the false narrative that our liberation is for sale, and that I cannot do. Our people did not shed blood for money. They shed blood for dignity. For the right to walk on our own land and say, this is ours. For the right to look foreign powers in the eyes and say, we will not kneel. For the right to build schools with our own hands, grow our own food, power our own industries, and write our own story. You offered $600 million as an apology for silence. But I offer you a different proposal. Rise. Rise, Jamaica, and free yourselves from the shackles that still bind you. Rise, Jamaica, and reclaim the national treasures that have been stripped away in the name of globalization. Rise, Jamaica, and show the world that the children of the Caribbean will no longer bow. That is the apology that would shake the world. That is the apology that Africa would never reject. The burden of history is heavy, yes, but the burden of dignity is sacred, and for that, we must stand firm. Many will say, Traore should have taken the money. Many will say, Burkina Faso is a poor country. They could have used the funds. But let me remind them, poverty is not always the absence of money. It is the absence of power. It is the absence of control over your own destiny. And we refuse to sell the little power we are reclaiming in exchange for the comfort of temporary relief. What good is $600 million today if tomorrow we remain on our knees? What good is a check if it comes at the price of turning a blind eye to the chains on the hands of our brothers and sisters in the Caribbean? No, my friends, I reject the money because I love Jamaica too much to pretend that their chains are invisible. When I speak of solidarity between Africa and the Caribbean, I do not speak of transactions. I speak of shared liberation. We cannot build a united front if one of us is still chained to the master's table. We cannot pretend to be free while our brothers are still being beaten in their own streets. We cannot preach sovereignty while the treasures of your land are still controlled by others. So, I return your $600 million not with anger, but with hope. Hope that Jamaica will rise. Hope that this moment will not be remembered as a failed transaction, but as the spark of a revolution. Hope that your youth will stand, your artists will speak, your workers will march, your soldiers will protect the people instead of policing them, and your leaders will serve not foreign powers, but the soul of Jamaica. Prime Minister Holness, your courage to apologize was historic, but now I ask for a greater courage. The courage to fight for your people. The courage to dismantle corruption that eats at the core of your nation. The courage to rebuild Jamaica's national treasures not for foreign investors, but for Jamaican children yet unborn. The courage to stand before the world and say, we will not just apologize to Africa, we will free ourselves too. Because Jamaica's freedom is Africa's freedom. Your struggle is our struggle. And if you rise, it strengthens us all. I do not need your money. I need your voice. I need your power. I need your people awake and standing tall. Let us not be a people who exchange apologies with cash. Let us be a people who exchange chains for fire, fire to burn the systems that keep us oppressed. Jamaica was once the heartbeat of resistance, the land of defiance, the home of movements that shook empires. From the songs of your streets to the voices of your ancestors, your land was never meant to be silent. I call upon you now to remember who you are, to remember Nanny of the Maroons, to remember Marcus Garvey, to remember the voices that roared when the world tried to silence them. If they could see this day, they would not ask you to give Africa a check. They would ask you to give your people freedom. Freedom from police and military brutality that dehumanizes the poor. Freedom from corruption that robs your people of their future. Freedom from economic structures that turn your land into a plantation for foreign powers. Freedom from the lies that tell you that your nation is too small to stand on its own. That is the freedom I want for you, Jamaica. And when you have that freedom, when the streets of Kingston no longer run with the tears of the poor, when your young people can dream without fear, when your national treasures are returned to their rightful owners, you will not need to apologize to Africa. You will stand next to us, shoulder to shoulder, as a liberated nation. And that, my brother, is worth more than $600 million. I say this not as a politician counting votes. I say this as a soldier of dignity. I say this as a son of Africa, speaking to a son of the Caribbean. Our ancestors did not dream of checks. They dreamed of liberation. They dreamed of walking freely, building their nations without permission, loving their children without fear, dying with dignity. Some will ask, why reject the money if it can help Burkina Faso? I will answer them clearly, because not every gift comes without a cost. Sometimes the cost is silence. Sometimes it is complicity. Sometimes it is accepting a narrative that we are the ones in need, while others are the saviors. I refuse to accept that narrative. I will not trade our dignity for dollars. Burkina Faso stands today not as a beggar nation, but as a nation rebuilding its soul, brick by brick, sweat by sweat, sacrifice by sacrifice. And if we must walk this road alone, we will, but we will walk it with our heads held high. To the Jamaican people, I say this from my heart. You are not the enemy. You are our brothers and sisters. We will not accept your money because we do not want your chains. We want your strength. We want your unity. We want you to rise. And when you rise, together we will build a world where no African and no Caribbean child will ever again have to inherit chains. Prime Minister Holness, I thank you for your courage. I thank you for your words. But I ask for something greater. Action. Do not give Africa what you have not yet given your people freedom. Let the apology begin at home. Let the reparations start with your own streets, your own lands, your own people. Let history remember Jamaica not as the nation that sent checks, but as the nation that stood up. Burkina Faso will not accept $600 million. We will accept a Jamaica that is free, a Jamaica that is whole, a Jamaica that stands tall. When that day comes, we will not be donor and recipient. We will be brothers in arms. So I close with this. The real currency between nations is not money. It is dignity. It is courage. It is freedom. Keep your $600 million. Use it to heal your wounds, rebuild your nation, free your people. And when you have done that, come not with a check, but with a flag raised high. And together, we will build a world our ancestors would be proud of. Thank you.
Family, what is your take to the apology to Ibrahim Torres that comes from Jamaica? We know Jamaican history tells us that Jamaicans are from Africa. It's just that it was during the time of slavery, whereby they were taken to a land that they did not know until they grew up there, the families and everything that happened in history. So now we are seeing Africa building up again. I just want to congratulate the Prime Minister of Jamaica for humbling himself, because he stood in front of cameras and he humbled himself, apologizing to his fellow African, knowing the history of Africa. He realized what Torres was doing, that he was doing the right thing. So, family, I don't know what you think about this, but I was really touched when I listened to the Prime Minister of Jamaica apologizing, humbling himself in the office that he holds and the office that Torres holds. You know, when you listen to their speeches face to face, when you put the speech, you put the Prime Minister of Jamaica's speech, you put the speech of Traore, you start to realize that spiritually they are connecting. The ancestors are working behind the scenes. those were dumped in the seas in chains. Now, when you listen to these two gentlemen, it's not them, according to me, or my opinion. I feel our ancestors are speaking. They want those chains to be released underwater through the communication that we see now. I really, really, really appreciate the Prime Minister of Jamaica. We have a Jamaican Prime Minister joining the principled leaders of Africa. Because it's not all the leaders in Africa who are principled. We have leaders that they stand on their word. They are never shaken. What do you think, family? Drop your comment. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Our ancestors are speaking underwater on chains. Bravo, bravo.